Hi all. Let's look at some important concepts as far as ectopic pregnancy management is concerned, and this would help us in answering our MRCOG Part 2 questions on ectopic pregnancy. Let's look at the flowchart. In case we have a positive pregnancy test in women of reproductive age, and we have ectopic pregnancy at the back of our mind, we first establish whether the patient is hemodynamically stable or not. All right. The first thing to look at is if the patient is hemodynamically stable, if there are any concerns of significant intraperitoneal bleeding. If that is there, then we would escalate care and consider urgent surgical management with urgent volume replacement. No doubt about that. The question arises if the patient is hemodynamically stable. If the patient is hemodynamically stable and there are no concerns of significant intraperitoneal bleeding, what we need to look at is her background history, risk factors for ectopic pregnancy, for example, a previous history of salpingectomy for ectopic pregnancy, etc. We would also need to look at her ultrasound scan, her serum beta HCG levels. The next thing is we need to conclude whether we can comfortably diagnose ectopic pregnancy or is it suspected alone. Remember, for diagnosis of ectopic pregnancy, we need to have evidence of yolk sac in the adnexa. At least there has to be a yolk sac within a gestational sac or a fetal pole which is seen in the adnexa. So that would be the definitive sign of ectopic pregnancy. If it is mentioned that there is just an inhomogeneous cystic structure in the adnexa, then it would just be a suspected ectopic pregnancy. And this is important when we approach the questions. It would be a suspected ectopic pregnancy when there is just an inhomogeneous mass, which is the most common finding in ectopic pregnancy, or just a cystic structure in the adnexa. Then it would be a suspected ectopic pregnancy. When we see a yolk sac or a fetal pole in the adnexa, then we know that it is a diagnosed ectopic pregnancy. So based on ultrasound, we know whether it is suspected or diagnosed. After this, what we need to do is establish if the patient has significant pain, if the mass is more than 3.5 centimeter or 35 millimeter, if the fetal heartbeat is present, serum beta HCG is more than 5,000. If any of these signs are present, then we need to consider a surgical management, straightforward, because this appears to be advanced ectopic pregnancy and may not respond to medical methods. On the other hand, if there is no significant pain and adnexal mass is less than 35 millimeter, there is no visible fetal heartbeat, no intrauterine pregnancy. One of the prerequisites for offering medical management is that we need to rule out an intrauterine pregnancy. There has to be minimal or no free fluid in the pelvis. If we see that the beta HCG level is less than 1,000, that means it's very low. Even if it's an ectopic pregnancy, it is unlikely to rupture soon, right? So if it is less than 1,000 and the lady is willing to follow up, that's an essential criteria that she has to be willing to follow up. As per the Green Top guideline, even if it is less than 1,500, we could offer an expectant management, right? So as per the NICE guidelines, they say that if it is less than 1,000, expectant management can be offered. GTG says less than 1,500. NICE guidelines also mentions that between 1,000 to 1,500, we can consider expectant. So for all practical purpose, less than 1,500, you could consider expectant management of ectopic pregnancy. If it is less than 1,500, as per the NICE guideline, and she is willing to follow up, you can offer a medical method for ectopic pregnancy, can consider expectant management as well. Between 1,500 to 5,000, you could give an option as per the NICE guideline between surgical and medical methods. All right, you could offer her an option between surgical and medical methods, and this is for as per the NICE guideline. As far as the GTG is concerned, we consider medical method between 1,500 to 5,000 because the patient becomes eligible for medical method. Hence, we consider medical method between 1,500 to 5,000. However, NICE mentions that you can give an option of surgical as well as medical. As we discussed, less than 1,500, you can consider expectant. For practical purpose or for the exam, if the lady's beta HCG is between 1,500 to 5,000, you can consider medical method. You can choose medical method from amongst the options. If it is less than 1,500, you can consider expectant method. If it is more than 5,000, consider surgical method. This is for exam point of view. Now there is a catch here. So the green top guideline mentions that methotrexate should never be given at 0 hours unless ectopic pregnancy is diagnosed. If it is suspected, this is why it is important to differentiate between suspected ectopic pregnancy and a diagnosed ectopic pregnancy. Diagnosed is where you have a definitive evidence of pregnancy in the adnexa, and suspected is when you have an inhomogeneous mass in the adnexa. Okay, just a cystic mass or a collection in the adnexa, which is suspicious of ectopic pregnancy. That is suspected. All right, so when it is suspected, even if the beta HCG falls in the range where you can give methotrexate, even if it falls, never give it in at the first shot, that is, never give it at 0 hours, unless it is confirmed to be ectopic pregnancy. All right. For example, if your beta HCG at 0 hours is, say, 2,500, she has inhomogeneous mass in the adnexa, which is around 2 centimeters in size. So it falls well within the range of the criteria for medical management. There is no pain and no intrauterine pregnancy which is identified. So all the criteria for medical management are fulfilled. Yet at 0 hour, you will not give methotrexate because there is always a small possibility that you may miss a viable intrauterine pregnancy. So the guideline reads, however, before administering methotrexate, it is essential that the diagnosis of ectopic pregnancy is correct. As the majority of ectopic pregnancies are visualized as inhomogeneous masses, it is prudent to repeat beta HCG in such cases in 48 hours. Okay, so in such cases where it is suspected inhomogeneous mass, repeat in 48 hours. If it is sure that there is a yolk sac, there is a fetal pole in the adnexa, then you're sure it is ectopic pregnancy. Then you don't have to repeat. You can straight away give methotrexate if it is between 1,500 and 5,000. In the event of serum beta HCG dropping, so after 48 hours you repeat and it drops, you can follow expectant management. Should the beta HCG be rising at a rate that may be consistent with a viable intrauterine pregnancy, repeat the scan to check the diagnosis before administering methotrexate. All right. So because now if it is rising, it can still be intrauterine pregnancy. So you need to repeat the scan. For example, in case it becomes from here after 48 hours, say it becomes 4,500. It is not really doubled, I would say, but this would need a TVS for you to see what exactly is happening. If now the inhomogeneous mass in the adnexa persists and still there is no intrauterine, now with the rise in beta HCG being in this manner and 4,500 falling well within the criteria for injection methotrexate, now you can give injection methotrexate because a viable intrauterine pregnancy would have shown for sure with this much rise of beta HCG if it was viable. All right. What the guideline is trying to say is that when it is suspected, do not offer methotrexate at 0 hours. Repeat methotrexate at 48 hours and see if it is falling. If it is falling, you don't need to give anything further. If it is rising, you repeat her scan. If there is still no viable intrauterine pregnancy, then you can give methotrexate. If you repeat the scan and there is a viable intrauterine pregnancy, then definitely you will not give methotrexate. All right, so it also mentions here that the highlighted part, if you read, there are many well-documented cases of women with intrauterine pregnancies treated for suspected ectopic pregnancy with methotrexate. Methotrexate should therefore never be given at first visit unless the diagnosis of ectopic pregnancy is absolutely clear and a viable intrauterine pregnancy has been excluded. So if it is an inhomogeneous mass, even if it is falling within 1,500 to 5,000, you will choose the option repeat beta HCG in 48 hours. If diagnosis of ectopic pregnancy is not confirmed, for definitive evidence of pregnancy, yolk sac or fetal fold has to be there. And viable intrauterine pregnancy has been excluded. Methotrexate must not be given at the first visit. You will repeat after 48 hours. For example, let's look at these examples. A lady presented with amenorrhea for 6 weeks, mild lower abdominal pain, and spotting per vagina. Her urine pregnancy test is positive. Ultrasound shows an empty cavity and a mass near ovary, which is 2 centimeters, no fluid in the pouch of Douglas. Beta HCG is 2,300. So they have not mentioned whether this is repeated. So let's consider this as 0 hours beta HCG. There is a mass, inhomogeneous mass. So we are having a case of suspected ectopic pregnancy. We don't have a case of diagnosed because there is just an inhomogeneous mass, or mass basically near the ovary, which is mentioned here. And this is 2,300. Ideally, if it was actually an ectopic pregnancy, methotrexate can be given medical management. But in this case, we would consider repeating in 48 hours because we do not really know what is happening here. So this is what you're going to do. Repeat in 48 hours. So that is going to be the answer. Let's look at the next example. A lady presented with amenorrhea for 6 weeks, mild lower abdominal pain, and spotting per vaginum. Her urine pregnancy test is positive. Ultrasound shows an empty cavity and a mass near the ovary, which is 2 centimeters, with evidence of yolk sac. Now, this becomes a definitive sign of ectopic pregnancy. Definitive sign. Okay. So in this case, we know it is ectopic pregnancy. Beta HCG is within 1,500 to 5,000. We can consider systemic methotrexate. Let's look at certain EMQs now. 31-year-old woman with two-term vaginal deliveries is given systemic methotrexate for the management of a right tubal ectopic pregnancy. She is reviewed following her day 7 serum beta-HCG results. She remains clinically well throughout her follow-up with no abdominal pain. So she was given methotrexate, and now the follow-up after methotrexate is always day 1 or the day 0 that you are doing when you're giving methotrexate. After that, you do it on day 4 and you repeat beta-HCG on day 7. Between day 4 to day 7, the fall should be more than 15%. This should be the fall. All right. So for example, if on day 4, the beta-HCG level was 2000, and on day 7, the beta-HCG level is 1000, you know that the fall is by 50%. It has halved, right? So this is a good sign. How do you calculate the percentage? 2000 minus 1000, that's 1000. Okay, so 1000 divided by the baseline value, which is 2000, the day 4 value, into 100. So this will give you the percentage. All right. So in this case, we had a 50% drop in this example. Now let's look at the question. If day 1 is 4432, day 4 was 4728. Day 7, instead of falling, if you notice, it has risen. And it has risen to a level which has gone beyond the limit where injection methotrexate is permissible. So it is more than 5000. So your injection methotrexate cannot be repeated. Normally, if it is less than 5000 and it is rising, you can consider repeating injection methotrexate. Here you cannot because it is risen beyond 5000, wherein we would consider salpingectomy. In this case, a 34-year-old woman who is G2P1 presents with mild vaginal spotting at 6 weeks of gestation. A transvaginal scan revealed no intrauterine sac, but a 2 to 3 centimeter mass was seen in the left appendixa with no free fluid. She opted to have medical management after detailed counseling, and this was undertaken the same day. The woman was asymptomatic. Her beta-HCG to begin with was 1450. Now, this was an inhomogeneous mass, right? So it was repeated after 48 hours to make sure, 1650. Okay. Here it was decided to give her injection methotrexate. And now day 4 and day 7 is 1700 and your 1500. Day 7. That means the difference is 200. 200 is the difference. And if you want to calculate the percentage difference, you have to divide it by 1700. All right, so 1700 into 100. Now, what does this become? This is basically your 200 divided by 17. So 17 ones are 17, 3 carry over, and it will become something like 17, 1, 11.8%. So the percentage difference is 11, around 11 to 12%. So if that difference is not more than 15%, that means the medical method initially has failed. So in that case, you can give second dose of methotrexate provided this value is less than 5,000. So it falls within the bracket for methotrexate. So you can give a second dose of methotrexate in this case.